Why do you run from the silence? You fill every moment with noise, with thought, with ritual, with work. You surround yourself with the architecture of identity, building a self from beliefs, memories, and desires, hoping these walls are thick enough to muffle the sound of the wind blowing through the void. You call this pursuit purpose. You call this frantic construction life. But beneath it all, there is an echo of fear, a dread of the open space, a terror of the pause between your heartbeats, the silence that preceded your birth and the silence that will follow your death. You have been taught to search for God as a thing, a destination, a presence. You look for it in the light, in the structure, in the grand design. You seek a face in the clouds, a voice in the thunder, a feeling of bliss in meditation, or a set of rules carved in stone. You are a collector seeking to acquire the divine, to add it to your collection of known things. You want a God you can name, possess, and understand. A God who can be yours. A God that confirms the reality of the you who is doing the seeking. This search is the ego's grandest project. It seeks a God made in its own image, a something that can be held, defined and used as a shield against the one thing the ego cannot tolerate: emptiness. But what if the divine is not an addition, but a subtraction? What if God is not the cathedral, but the silent space the cathedral encloses? What if God is not the answer, but the infinite primordial silence that swallows the question? What if the God you are so desperately building, defining, and chasing is not found in the noise, but is the very emptiness you dread? This is the haunting suspicion that keeps you running. The God you want is a comfort, a fortress, but the God that is might be an abyss, not a presence, but a profound, impersonal, and terrifying absence. You are afraid that if you truly stop, if you let the noise fade and the walls of your self crumble, you will turn to face that infinite space and find ... nothing. And you are terrified, deep in your bones, that this vast, breathing nothing is the only holy ground there is. This terror is the ego's birthplace. The I you believe yourself to be is nothing more than a structured response to the fear of this infinite emptiness. It is a fortress, built brick by brick from every thought, every memory, every label you have ever claimed. I am this. I am not that. I want this. I fear that. Each one is a stone in the wall, designed to give you form, to make you feel solid, to protect you from the vast, formless void. The ego is the architect of your prison, but it convinces you it is your savior. And so, its reaction to the divine emptiness is one of pure survival. It must define, or it will die. It cannot comprehend a God that is an absence, because the ego itself is only a presence. It is a collection of noise, and it cannot hear the music of the underlying silence. So it begins its grandest evasion. It turns God into an object, a thing to be acquired. The ego's God is a possession. It might be a complex system of belief, a dogma so intricate you can spend a lifetime defending its walls. It might be a spiritual identity, a new, more shimmering robe for the A to wear. I am spiritual. I am awakened. I am on the path. It might be a future promise heaven, enlightenment, Satori, a destination that keeps you perpetually seeking, perpetually becoming, but never arriving. The ego loves the search for God because the search keeps the seeker alive. It is the frantic need to fill the silence with the sound of your own footsteps. This is the ego's prison. It is not made of iron bars, but of definitions. By needing God to be a something, a loving Father, an impersonal force, a universal consciousness, even a purpose, you have already built a cage. You have drawn a circle in the vast open desert of the real and refuse to step outside. You are terrified that if you do, the I you have so carefully constructed will scatter like dust. This prison is loud, filled with the echoes of your own answers, your own certainties, your own desperate prayers to a God you have shaped. A God who, by sheer coincidence, always seems to value what you value and condemn what you condemn. The ego cannot find God in emptiness. It can only find its own extinction. And it will burn the whole world down, starting with your own, before it lets you turn to face that silent, annihilating fire. But while the ego builds its fortress of noise, something else watches from the cellar, your shadow, the exiled part of you, the parts of yourself you deem too quiet, too dark, too empty, too nothing to be allowed into the lighted rooms of your identity. You have cast this silence out, but it has not left. It simply waits, breathing in the dark, and it whispers. It whispers the truth that the ego cannot bear to hear. It whispers that this frantic, lifelong search for a God outside of you ... This desperate chase for purpose, for meaning, for a final, validating presence is just an elaborate game. It is the ego playing hide and seek with itself. It is the I shouting, "Who am I?" into a canyon, just to hear an echo and feel less alone. It is the seeker, pretending not to know that the very thing it seeks is the silence it is filling with its own seeking. Your shadow knows this. The shadow is not afraid of the dark. It is the dark. It is the part of you that remembers the void. It remembers the time before you were a you, and it whispers that the divine is not a presence to be found, but the primordial emptiness that remains when all your searching stops. God is not at the end of the path. God is the path and the trees and the air and the seeker. But most of all, God is the emptiness in which the path, the trees, and the seeker appear. This is the shadow's chilling invitation. It asks you to stop the search, to turn and face the nothingness you have been running from. It asks you to listen, not for an answer, but to the silence that swallows the question. The ego seeks to add God to its collection. The shadow knows that divinity is found in total subtraction. It is not what you gain. It is what you are willing to lose. Lose your name, lose your beliefs, lose your story. Lose the frantic eye that clings to the edges of the abyss, terrified of falling. What remains when the seeker is gone? What is left when the one who is searching dissolves? There is no thing left. There is no one to claim enlightenment. There is no ego to plant a flag on the summit of truth. There is only the vast, silent, breathing emptiness. The shadow knows that this emptiness is not a lack. It is not a barren void. It is the womb. It is the source. It is the holy, unnameable is from which all forms arise and to which all forms return. The final fire you have been running from is not one of revelation. It is one of annihilation. You have been trained to expect a grand, moment, a final vision, a moment where you finally grasp the truth. You expect to stand on the mountaintop, victorious, and know. This is the ego's final, most subtle trap. It believes that even in surrender, it will be the one who gets to experience the void. But you don't find God in the emptiness. You are unmade by it. This is not a discovery. It is a dissolution. It is the fire burning the very seeker who lit it. Every wall you built, every name you wore, every belief you held as a shield, they are not just taken down. They are consumed. The I that has been searching, fearing, and hoping ... it simply dissolves. It is undone. There is no you left to claim a prize. There is no one to report back from the abyss. There is no survivor of this sacred fire. What is left is not a presence. It is not an answer. It is not even peace as the mind understands it. It is just the vast, silent, impersonal, and breathing is. It is the emptiness that was always there beneath the noise of your becoming. The void is not empty of life. It is empty of you. This is the echo in the void. It is not your echo. It is the echo of a question that has dissolved into its own answer. The search for God was the only thing hiding God. The I was the only veil. And in the final, terrifying, liberating silence, there is no searcher, there is no fortress. There is no God to be found. There is only ... this. And so, the frantic sound of your seeking finally stops. The echoes of your name fade into the vast, silent canyon. There is no need to build, no need to run, no need to become. The fire has done its work, and the ashes have been scattered into the quiet, open space that holds all things. You have become the very silence you always feared, and in that silence, there is no one left to be afraid. The prison was never locked. It was only a thought, a long, weary dream of being someone. What is left when even the one asking the question is gone? Thanks for sharing the silence.